A-V-A-N-T-G-A-R-D-E. Well, the term avant-garde generally refers to art or literature or music that works against convention. Generally, when we think of avant-garde, we think of art that's a little bit strange, a little bit weird, a little bit disconcerting perhaps, that really shocks our expectations of what art is or should be. The term avant-garde is a French term, and originally it was a military term, and it referred to what in English we'd call the advanced guard, so a group of soldiers who moved ahead of the main body of troops. From that point, the term evolved somewhat. In the 19th century, it started to be used to refer more generally to groups in the arts or in any field who were innovative and who were ahead of the mainstream, as it were. And that is the basic meaning that the term has today. But there are other connotations on top of that. So, as I said, generally when we think of avant-garde art, we think of something a bit strange and a bit oppositional. Avant-garde art is something that opposes convention, it opposes the mainstream. It really goes against tradition. So this is Gustave Courbet's painting Un enterrement à Ornans, or A Burial at Ornans, painted in 1849-1850. So it is really quite an early example of avant-garde practice. And at first glance, this painting is not particularly avant-garde looking to the modern viewer. It is figurative, so it represents people and objects very clearly. It's not difficult to figure out what's going on in this painting at a basic level. So it's not abstract and it's not particularly weird in ways that modern spectators might expect. In order to understand why this is avant-garde, we need to look at the context in which it was produced. And in the mid-19th century, there were rules governing the production of art. Courbet comes along and he just sweeps those conventions to one side. He paints this picture of a funeral, a burial, in the provincial town of Ornans, so an event from everyday life. But he does it on an absolutely massive scale. This painting is about 3 metres high, I think, by about 6.5 metres across. So it's the size of a modern day billboard, and if you go and see it in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, it blows you away with the size. So he's taking a picture of everyday life and he's raising it to the level of grand, monumental history painting. And in doing so, he's saying, look, why shouldn't everyday life be as worthy of our attention and as worthy of art as, you know, a historical event or a myth?
What was the reaction when he did this?
Massive. As I said, there is a peak of avant-garde activity in the early 20th century. And you have movements such as Fauve painting with Matisse and Derain, Cubism with Picasso and Braque, also Italian Futurism, and there are parallel movements in literature and so on. But really, the avant-garde movement that's seen as quintessentially avant-garde, an avant-garde of avant-gardes, if you like, is Dada. And the Dada movement started in Zurich during the First World War and then really moved over to Paris. Really, Dada goes one step further than avant-garde precursors such as Flaubert or Courbet. They were questioning particular conventions governing their art forms, but Dada comes along and says, we're against art. We're going to question what art is. This is Marcel Duchamp's 1919 work, Et la chaud au cul. And it consists of a printed reproduction of the Mona Lisa, which Duchamp has graffitied, adding a moustache and a little beard, and he's added this caption, LHOOQ. Now this is, at first glance, quite mysterious. We think, what on earth could that mean? Is he just joking around? What's he doing? Is he deliberately kind of hiding his meaning? And there are various possibilities. If we read this as one word, it sort of sounds like look. So he's inviting us to look at the image, look at what he's done to the image. But if we read the letters out loud one by one in French, elle a chaud au cul, this translates roughly as something like she's got a hot arse. So the caption is kind of making the Mona Lisa sexual. Not only has he disturbed gender boundaries by adding the moustache and the beard, he's also bringing her down from her pedestal in a way, kind of taking away from this very aloof, iconic image.